edit it because I want to talk about a few things first, and then we'll see where we end up going with it. Um, I know you and I both are students of the Course in Miracles, and I love how you've incorporated spirituality and business together. And like you said, there's a positive reason for everything. Yes. And I'm curious from you how your corporate clients hear that. Like now, have you had any chance to talk to any of them right now?
Yeah, I have a client out in San Diego that I'm doing regular work with, but it's Lean Six Sigma stuff, which I know you know.
Hmm.
It's really not. We're not delving into the Zen of Kaizen, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yet,
But
you think you
no,
might? Do you think you might be able to with them?
no, not with this
Oh,
client.
okay.
It's not what they're looking for, and I
Yeah.
don't push it.
Hmm.
You know, there's the old saying,
Yeah.
when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. You
Yep.
know, so yeah, I don't push it. But people will ask me, usually with corporate clients, it's an executive or a project leader or, a middle manager or something who asks me more privately.
Mm-hmm.
They don't normally ask me in front of a group. Like there's something different that, you're teaching us. What is that?
Yeah.
So,
Is that how you market it? I mean, how do you market?
well, I market predominantly through my Lean Six Sigma training, my
Good.
process improvement stuff, strategy planning, team building, executive coaching and development, leadership development, that kind of stuff. And with 20 books published,
Yeah.
I get a lot of inquiries from the various titles of my books, some
Okay.
of which have that spiritual, miracle-minded managers, entrepreneur, sage leadership. Others don't. Pulling together, reinvent yourself. Uh, those are just more classics. Leading with passion.
If
So
if you had if you had your way, like if you could do everything the way exactly you want to do it, what would you do?
I actually am for the most
Oh, yeah.
part. Yeah, I love teaching business process improvement and innovation to hungry leaders who really do want to make a difference. And I love teaching it in a very Zen kind of way, so to speak. So I just naturally incorporate the spiritual lessons I've learned over the years with the business tools and strategies that I've learned. And I love that. It makes me unique. It differentiates me from a lot of other consultants. I'm not your just classic MBA who comes in and starts crunching numbers and doing analysis and telling you what to do. I have a very Socratic approach. So it's, I pull versus push. And I ask a lot of intriguing questions that they don't normally get asked. And that makes them think at a deeper level. So that's what I love to do.
So you're
And
accomplishing it anyway. I mean, you're actually waking them up to consciousness without shining the light on their face so much that it blinds them.
exactly, I really don't even refer to it as consciousness specifically with awakening, because what we do, Jodee, is when I go in, I do an analysis of a value stream, for example, of end to end, and we take a look at just how long it takes, how many steps are involved, how many people are involved, just how complicated it is. It's always way more complicated than it needs to be. That's human nature. We're really good at complicating things, not so good at simplifying.
Right.
So as you know, Lean Six Sigma is about simplifying and standardizing and making sure everything just works like a precision machine or an orchestra. Everything's in tune, everything's in harmony and balance and flow. So by doing the analysis, by collecting the data, by the way, I don't do the data collection myself. I teach them how to collect it, what to collect, how to display it in a meaningful way. You don't just put a bunch of Excel spreadsheets up in front of an executive. Their eyeballs are going to roll out of their head. Give them a graph that just blows their mind. Give them a chart, So take the data and turn it into useful information, such as a graph. This actually tells us something meaningful with a picture. And then that's where the awakening begins. I always compare what I do to the show Undercover Boss.
Oh, yeah.
Undercover CEO or whatever, where the CEO goes undercover and then realizes just how messed up some of the processes are, right, in their own business. There's just it's a form of awakening.
Mm-hmm.
It's a form of mindfulness where now I'm much more mindful of what's really going on,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to some, illusions that are delusions that I had rolling around. And as you know, Course in Miracles it's an awakening,
Mm-hmm.
and it, it references illusions a lot, the illusions of the ego. It's all through A Course in Miracles. So, well, there's all kinds of illusions in business.
Mm-hmm.
We think we're doing a great job. We think that, we hit these targets and these percentages and these numbers and these time frames. Well, oftentimes that's not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
We think we can do it in 10 steps. Five.
Yeah.
What's that all about? Yeah, so it's a neat blend.
I love it. I love that you came to it. I don't really remember you telling me how you came to the blend. Were you always like thinking on a spiritual level? I don't
Well,
remember.
I grew up, actually, I grew up in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And, but even as a kid, I remember wondering, challenging even some of the lessons I was learning, like fear God. Why would I fear God? pretty, pretty sure he put me here.
Mm-hmm.
So why should I be afraid? And mantras in church, like I'm not worthy. Every Sunday, if not every day, sometimes we went every day. I'm not worthy. What, really? You made somebody who's not worthy, God? So I just had questions about some of these teachings.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in life, I started to explore the Tao and the Buddha's teachings, and even some Hindu teachings, even some Muslim teachings, just Jewish teachings. I just was curious about what are some of these other spiritual leaders teaching, saying, and are there some common patterns? And I did find a lot of common patterns. There's so many common patterns, for example, between what the Buddha taught and what Jesus taught and what Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And it was essentially all about flow. It was all about getting out of your own way, as I like to put it,
Mm-hmm.
getting into the great flow, the great Tao, which is synonymous with the Holy Spirit, with prana, with chi, the life force energy, source energy. Some refer to it as source energy. It's God. It's capital L love. I write about that in Miracle Minded Manager. Capital L love is the one true love. It's a source of energy. It's where we all come from. It's God. Where small L love, ego love. We fall in and out of love. You love your car, you love your house, you love your kids and things like that. Well, it's only capital L love if it's purely unconditional, no conditions, which translates into forgiveness and no condemnation, no grievances, no complaints, no negativity. Pure capital L love is just all about pure joy, pure flow, the Tao. And when we embrace that and we stop doubting one another and we stop doubting and we stop seeing everyone as separate, that's how the ego sees things. We start seeing the connection we all share. It's in one of my books, I refer to it as Zenergy.
Yeah.
So it's that just pure grace, pure grace. And when we allow it to, I love what St. Francis said, make me an instrument of your peace. Mm-hmm. Use me as an instrument of your grace, of your goodwill, your pure love, your unconditional love, your joy, your happiness, your well-being. And when we channel that, and I bring that into the classroom without telling anybody,
yeah.
It lights up the room.
Mm-hmm.
People can sense it. And some people do see auras. Some people actually see the light that surrounds all of us, our auras, but most people don't. Mm-hmm. But whether they see it or not doesn't really matter. They feel it. They feel the energy. There's just like, wow, there's just something about this guy or his words or this woman or her words. And it's more than just what they're telling us in terms of content. Mm-hmm. And it's even more than context. Mm. It's energy. It's energy. It's powerful.
So you said flow. You mentioned that word before. People in manufacturing understand flow state. They understand how that word works. And then if we go to the guy whose name I can never pronounce, Csikszentmihalyi's work about
Oh, yeah, yeah.
flow,
Chick
right?
Haley or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That it's kind of similar. I mean, when we're talking about spiritual flow, the way you've been talking about it, it is no different than value stream mapping and flow state when we're talking about work. And probably the most tangible work we can think about is manufacturing processes, making things,
Yeah.
welding, doing those things. And I love how you said people in that environment who might not ever have had the opportunity to even think about a higher consciousness are experiencing it through your teaching and training, and that allows you to bring your higher consciousness to whatever you're doing. So I've been learning over COVID, which by the way I want to talk about what's happened in the last 6 months. We'll get there. About no, how can I say it? Consciousness, awareness, and being real. That's this podcast, which you're on right now, has shifted from what it used to be when it was called Bach Talks. By the way, you will be my first 3-time guest. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
To now it's called Circle Up and Get Real. And REAL is an acronym for Radical, Energized, Authentic, and Learning Based. And my work is now flowing into that space where I'm going to be really narrowly focused on leadership communication. But I'm more interested in the who than the do. So I don't care what you do. I care more about who you are when you're doing whatever it is you're doing. And that's what I think that's why I resonate with you so much, because I feel like that's the same for you.
Oh, yeah. Authenticity, I think, is critical. Of course, Course in Miracles has a whole different definition of real than, or reality
Yeah.
than the ego, for example.
Right.
Um, but it's all about energetic connection, not just verbal connection, things like that. You talked earlier about flow in manufacturing, and you referenced specifically making things and whatnot, but there's a lot more flow to it, to the equation than that. For example, you've got inventory flow, product flow, cash flow, of course, but I like to talk about human flow. I run these Kaizen events. We get human flow, which means we get creative. We let go of resistance and fear and doubt. And, oh no, what if something goes wrong, or what if the senior management team doesn't approve this, or what all these resistant factors. Well, resistance is like a valve on a faucet. The water's there, it wants to flow, but if you've got the valve closed, you're not going to get that creativity, that innovation. So one of the things I do is I help lift that with the team, so that they're not, I'll take the blame if we get in trouble. But don't worry about it. We're going to be fine. So we get that, spiritual flow. Creativity is a form of spirit. And we're here to create, co-create.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to do that in a real, energetic, authentic, way. That's really what I think great leadership's all about.
So have you been able to do work virtually in the last 6 months?
Actually, in April, I was ready to kick off a whole new client project out in San Diego. And at the time I was in South Florida. Well, of course, that got completely shut down. So I wasn't able to get on a flight and fly out there. And we usually start with executive training, and then team training, and then process mapping and process improvement. That all got shut down. So a month or two passed. Meanwhile, they really wanted to get started. They're like, we've been planning this for over a year. And they, went through a selection process, and they picked me. Anyway, I said, well, let's figure that out. Talk about flow. Where there's a will, there's a way. Let's figure that out. I knew nothing really about Zoom at that time. I think I'd been on a few Zoom interviews and Zoom family calls or something like that, but I was no master at it. I'm still not. But this meant, okay, I have to learn a whole new set of tools. I have to learn how to teach online. I had to take hundreds of slides, PowerPoints, and recreate them to be more virtual friendly, Zoom friendly. Simulations that I run live with teams, I had to figure out a way to change up the simulations so that we could still use them, but we couldn't play the games, so to speak. We couldn't play in the same way. And we kicked that off in July. And now we've just run our first couple of virtual Kaizen events.
Wow.
We've actually, so we kicked this training off in early July, and now it's mid-September, and we've already made several really valuable changes. So pretty quick.
So, what do you think the future, like any of us know, but will the future be less than about you having to be in person and maybe that expands your ability to do the work you're doing?
I think there's an evolution taking place, and it's been taking place before COVID. That there's been more interest in. I mean, Zoom didn't happen overnight, and
Mm-hmm.
there's been WebEx and different softwares and virtual meetings for years.
Mm-hmm.
This just accelerated it,
Mm-hmm.
and essentially it forced a lot of people to learn a new tool that they didn't know before. FaceTime. These apps existed before COVID, but they just got boosted
Mm-hmm.
essentially by the fact that we can't go hang out with one another face to face. Do I think that's going to be forever? No, I personally don't. I kind of fear
Mm-hmm.
where we have to wear masks forever. We can't get within 6 feet of each other forever. I don't imagine that at all. I think that's living in hell, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really rough to not be able to hug people we love and just go to the pub and have a beer, sandwich.
Yeah.
It just, and for me as a teacher and an instructor and consultant, hands down, in my opinion, in face to face and running those simulations and walking around the room. And, my workshops are they're very intimate and informal. They're not big, events where I talk the whole time. They're
Right.
very interactive. So it's tougher to do that online. People are often distracted online.
Yeah.
They look like they're paying attention, but they got 3 other things going
I
on.
know.
You know? So I have high hopes and faith, certainly, in that we will not never go back to the way it was exactly before, because we are more aware.
Right.
I mean, people are much more this of, hey, maybe I should wash my hands more frequently, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I should cover my mouth properly when I cough, or maybe I should stay home if I'm not feeling well.
Right.
Things,
Right.
a lot of people already knew that, but some didn't. You
So,
know,
so can we get into there's a bigger message here. Um, you talked about fear, and fear is a miracle is simply a shift in consciousness from fear to love. And so if we're talking about miracles that are there all the time that we just didn't see because we are masked maybe in fear.
mhm.
And there's something greater that happened, I think, with this virus in the beginning of 2020. I don't know, I can't prove this, but 2020 vision, there was just something way bigger. And I'm wondering if you have any theories about that, about how the world has shifted and will shift, our political divide that we're experiencing in the United States, and all the things that seem to be so fear based. Do you have any theories about that?
I do, and it's probably upsetting to a lot of people. Um, but I believe we reap what we sow,
Mm-hmm.
not just individually, but collectively. That's, law of attraction, it's karma. What goes around comes around. It's cause and effect. And so, sorry to say, but I think in some ways we've asked for this. People have gone on for years complaining about, I don't have enough time to spend with my kids. I don't have enough time at home. I don't have enough time, to exercise. I don't have enough time for, now you do.
Mm-hmm.
You ask for it,
Right.
right? Collectively. You talk about fear. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but they live in fear. We attach to things. And so one of the great Buddhist teachings is detachment, letting go. Because whenever we attach to something, whether it's a job, a house, a child, a spouse, we live in fear of losing it.
Mm-hmm.
We've attached our happiness and our joy to something external. And so that's another shift, that's another miracle, so to speak, is letting go of that external attachment You still love it. You still respect it. You still want to be with that person. You still want to live in that house. You still love that vehicle you drive, whatever. You still love that job. But you know you're going to be okay without it. That everything's temporary except what's real. Of course, anything temporary is not real. Mm. So all these things we see with our eyes, of course, the miracle says aren't real because they're temporary. They're all going to disappear. The only thing that doesn't disappear is the capital L love that connects everybody. You came from it, some call it heaven, and you'll return to it. Some call it heaven. That life is cyclical, not linear. We lived before we took this body, we live after this body, the body's temporary. So once we let go of the idea that we're clinging, if you will, or attaching to these unreal temporary illusions, to use A Course in Miracles teachings, oh, there you have it. And then collectively, there's collective consciousness. And so when enough people all start thinking the same thing, all fearing the same thing, for example, they fuel it. Whether it's a hurricane or a forest fire, on 1 year after 9/11, after the 9/11 disaster, so to speak, 1 year later, the winning lottery number was, guess what? 9/11.
Wow.
You know why? Because so many people were thinking of that number.
Wow.
That's what I mean. And incidentally, there's a lot of science behind this now. The Heart Math Institute, which I think we've talked about before, has done some incredibly cool experiments on collective consciousness and what happens when you get enough people thinking or praying. This is where the power of prayer comes from. Because what's happening, Jodee, is that the thoughts we hold in mind trigger a vibration in our heart, what Heart Math calls a heart coherence, a signal. And so we're actually communicating with the world around us, with the universe, through our hearts, not through our mouths, not through our writing, so to speak, or our speaking. It's a signal through the heart. And Dr. David Hawkins did brilliant work on this, where he was actually able to calibrate different energetic frequencies of different feelings being signaled from the heart. For example, shame and guilt were the two lowest frequencies. So people who walk around the planet feeling ashamed or guilty for whatever, they're actually calling them more shame and guilt into their lives without even knowing it. They're karmically signaling for it, calling for it. So the shift, the miracle shift, if you will, is to learn to let go of those lower energy frequencies. Following shame and guilt is grief. Letting go of all grievances, all complaints, all negativity, all skepticism. People go around complaining about all kinds of stuff. Let it go. Okay, shift from that frequency to a much higher frequency called joy or appreciation, gratitude. It's one of the quickest ways to transcend the ego way of thinking. The ego is always comparing and contrasting us and dividing us and them, good and bad, right and wrong. The ego's all about separation. Spirit's all about unity, connectedness. So when we shift from those lower ego frequencies up into the higher spiritual frequencies, the love frequencies, everything in life changes. Because you always find what we're looking for. We're always going to have evidence that we're right. So people who walk around all bummed out and pointing out all the things that are wrong, in their minds, they're right because they're seeing what they're sowing. Right. But the same is true for people who've awakened, so to speak, raised that level of consciousness to one of appreciation and gratitude. So I think one of the quickest, simplest things anybody can do is give thanks for what they have and who they are and the potential that they have. The problem is a lot of people, and this is the ego talking, the ego says, what do I have to be thankful for? There's this crazy COVID virus going around. There's forest fires that are burning up houses. There's people who are sick and dying, and there's politicians who are crooked, and they're just pointing out everything that they can find that's wrong. What do I have to be thankful for? So the bottom line is they're not in a frequency of gratitude. They're in an anger frequency. They're in a jealous frequency, perhaps. They're in a fear frequency. They don't really understand that they're the only ones who can change that frequency. No one can do it for them.
Right.
So that's true empowerment. No one else can empower you. You empower yourself when you turn the dial and you let go of all those things that are going wrong and you go, you know what? This virus is here to teach us something. It's cleaning up the oceans. It's cleaning up the waterways. You can see the Himalayas from India that you haven't been able to ever see.
Mhm.
Okay, it will clear it up for the first time in, I don't know how many hundreds of years.
Mhm.
There's the smog is well, now there's the orange air in California, but the smog was lifting. There's the planet's healing.
Mhm.
That's interesting. It takes a virus to heal the planet.
Mm.
Interesting perspective. So I'm saddened by it. It's affected me financially. It's affected me socially and emotionally. I'm not immune to this whole situation, but I choose to look for positive reasons. It's happening for a reason. There's got to be a lesson in there somewhere, and I've done that my whole life. I've had some tough times, but I always look for the positive reason because I do believe it exists. And then from there, I consider it no longer a mistake or a mishap. I consider it a lesson learned. How can that be negative?
Love it. So I think about where we find ourselves politically. And by the way, on the Get Real Circle, which is my private Facebook page, we talk about religion and politics and money and things we're not supposed to talk about because I think people need a place to voice some of their um, concerns, if whatever you call them. And if we don't have a place to do that, it just stays inside of us. So I think politically right now, I'm really seeing the fear that you've been describing and the masses hear what the leader of the masses says in the way they are programmed to hear it, I think. And I'm watching the language of people, and I'm watching the, I'll call it war language. We're going to smash our competition. We're going to make sure we crush this, and all of this downward, fear-based language riles up people who are in fear-based understanding. Do you see there being an opportunity for us to excise some of that fear in any way that might show up politically?
Not in this round, and probably not for some time. I don't mean to sound,
No, this is what I want to know. I mean, because
yeah,
this just is real.
the way our, so you have to think in terms of it as systemic, the system that, this as a Lean Six Sigma expert, uh, W. Edward Demings once said, put a good person in a bad system and the bad system wins, no contest. I see that all the time as a business consultant. I go and I see really good people in a really screwed up system. It's just dysfunctional and, but it's cultural. So systems and culture are essentially synonymous. It translates into the way we do things around here. And so we have different systems and different cultures in different organizations and in different families. One family does things one way and another family does some another way. When you look at the US system and the US culture, it's sadly ironic, but it's anything but united. You watch these State of the Union meetings and half the room stands up and half doesn't. Is that united? I don't know. So I'm puzzled by that. But the punchline is our whole system is ego-based. It's just fear-based and dualistic. That's exactly what the ego is all about. Fear-based, dualistic, right, wrong, us, them thinking. Competitive. We'll beat, like you said, we'll beat down the enemies and things like that. Until we have a truly enlightened, masterful leader, a Buddha, so to speak, leading this country, it will be dualistic for a long time. And I don't know that the country is even ready for that or aware of that because people have become so independent versus interdependent. So this is mine and, don't touch it. And we have pockets of greatness all the time. We've got fantastic heroes helping one another out, forest fighters putting out fires and people working in healthcare and putting themselves at risk, taking care of, the sick and the injured. We have beautiful pockets, uh, almost exceptions to the system, actually exceptions to the system in a large part. But the system itself, if you ask me, is somewhat archaic, quite honestly. In other words, I think we're ready globally for a step up. And maybe that's why the COVID virus is here. Maybe this is a lesson about globally, why don't we have a world flag? We've got all these independent country flags. Why don't we have a world flag with a true world leader of peace, as opposed to whose country's, doing what? So I get the fact that we have a desire, even down to the state and the city level, the local level. We want to have a desire for power and control, make our own rules and things like that. But I think universally we could agree on a global set of objectives and rules and governance that really pulls us together as opposed to divides us. That's just a personal opinion, and I know it's a stretch.
Well, what are the options for those of, I'm going to just say us, because I feel like I'm waking up. I feel like I'm becoming more enlightened about these kinds of things. What is the role of those of us who believe in capital L love in spite of the system?
Yeah, well, Gandhi said it: be the change you want to see in the world. Don't get worked up. I don't even watch television, Jodee. I don't pay any attention to the ego dualistic battles that are going on. I vote, and but oftentimes well, I vote independently. Quite honestly, I'm not a party guy, political party guy. I'm a personal party guy.
You like to party, yeah.
But I don't watch the news for the most part. I don't if it's attack and blame and whose fault is this, and it's a bunch of rhetoric. You know what? That's not helping. So I know, because I believe strongly in law of attraction, in heart coherence, in the power of prayer. I believe I'm doing the world a lot more good by going out and sitting at my fire pit, or going down to the beach and sitting and watching the Atlantic waves roll in, and meditating and praying for world peace and being at peace, being the change I want to see in the world, and being thankful, okay, for every breath I take, being thankful for the friends and the family and the work I have, being thankful for the opportunity, even being thankful for some of the challenges, because I know there are opportunities in disguise. So just what can people do who are somewhat waking up or awakened? Be the change, and stop pointing fingers. Stop playing the game that everybody else is playing. That's my opinion.
That's such great advice and such a great reminder that it doesn't. Who was it? Helen Keller, who said, just because I cannot do everything does not mean I shouldn't do what I can do. I mean, what if John or Jodee, John, you're not going to change the world by yourself. And somebody else will tell you that. John, you're not going to change the world by yourself. It's like the starfish story, right? You throw one starfish into the ocean. How does that help anything? Well, it helped that one.
They help that one. Yeah,
And so
right.
then you throw the next one and you just do what you can. I think Theodore Roosevelt said, do what you can with what you have where you are.
Yeah. Well, in my case, Jodee, I'm a writer. So I'd say in the last probably 3-4 months, I've published at least 15 or 20 articles for free. I don't collect a fee for those. In some major publications. What am I writing about? What I just talked to you about. What can someone do if they're stressing about back to school, if they're a parent? What can people do if they're stressed about back to work? The political situation or the COVID or whatever. What can people do? And I offer tips similar to what I just told you. So I write to help the world. I know I can't do it by myself, but I can share ideas and teachings that might help one starfish, or two. And these podcasts, I think I've probably done yeah, probably 15 podcasts in the last, couple of months.
Mhm.
Um, I love it. If it's a way I can help somebody, why not?
Why not? I interviewed Robert Quinn back in March, and Robert Quinn wrote the book Building the Bridge as You Walk on It back in 2004. He's a professor at the University of Michigan, and he's
Mhm.
talking about leadership in a different way. And he said, instead of hierarchical top down leadership, he said, what if one person, the first leader, tries to find the first follower? The leader finds the first follower, and then together they find the second follower, and the third, and the fourth follower. And he said it's less like a top down triangle and more
Mhm.
like circles on a piece of paper that are just looking to find each other. And I
Yeah,
love that feeling, and that because it makes me feel like I can be effective. I just find another person, find another one, and let's throw the starfish back in the ocean together. And
yeah.
even, yeah.
I think of it as connecting the dots.
Mhm.
Finding connections between all of us, collaborating,
Yeah.
building strength in numbers. I like to call it a constituency for change. I go into organizations and I'm looking to build a constituency for change.
Mm.
A team that's ready to take on the status quo and make things better.
I love that.
And yeah, and it's not that tough to do,
Right.
but you got to be proactive. You got to step out there a little bit. And I know not everybody's going to appreciate every article I write or every podcast I'm on or everything I have to say. That's okay. But part of my job is to be provocative
Mm.
and to challenge people to think think at a different level. So that's what I do.
And that's what I've learned over COVID too. I don't think I. It's interesting, and I'm going to edit this part out because I'll just tell you this. I realized during COVID, like probably in March ish, that I have been living my entire life in fear of what people will think of me, fear of how my thinking different would be cut down, like literally almost cut down. When I worked in manufacturing, I was told that what I do is touchy feely crap that makes people puke. Because
Hmm.
I was a JR. Do you know JR? Job relations, part of the TWI.
Okay. Okay.
So
No, I don't know that,
the
but yeah.
TWI is supposedly the precursor to lean, and it
Okay.
was created during World War II, and it was the three parts of manufacturing training for the people who were staying back here in the factories. Rosie the Riveter.
Okay.
Job instruction, job methods, and job relations were the three
Oh,
parts.
okay.
I'm an expert in JR, job relations training.
Okay.
And so I would go into organizations and help them with problems they have with people they supervise. Four-step method for solving problems with people you supervise. And that was looked upon as touchy-feely because it was hard to measure results.
Yeah.
If you're improving methods, obviously you're, moving machines closer together and you save steps and save time, save money, that's really easy to measure.
Hmm.
Job instruction, how do I instruct people to do this job in four steps so that they can observe me teaching them and then do it? And there were four steps. But job relations, really difficult. So
Hmm.
I was in 2002 the first person to be in, or I was in the first class to be trained on this new process that we learned from a guy who came over from Sanyo in Japan, because Sanyo, had learned this great new process called TWI. And as we dug into it, we realized we exported it to Japan after
Ah,
World War II. And it was our own training that we were having to translate back from Japanese to English, and realized that it was our training at the beginning. So in
wow.
2002, I was in Syracuse, New York at an organization learning this training again.
Wow. That's interesting.
And yet the part that I was interested in was the person, right? And that didn't have a place because as it was a manufacturing extension partnership, MEP, they have them all over the United States in every state. We were funded by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and we couldn't make leadership measurable.
Hmm.
So that's the way we got our funding. And so we were trying to measure these, I don't know, feelings. How do I feel about my job? How do I feel about, the challenges I have interpersonally? And that was in 2002. And I don't know if we're doing much better with that measurement now, because people are spending so much time trying to find metrics when they
Yeah.
could be spending time relating to people.
Yeah. Do you know a company called Barry Weimeller? It's Bob Chapman. It's
I don't,
he's all over social media. He's an older guy, but he runs this company. It's all about culture. He does a lot with Simon Sinek.
Cynic, yep, I know him.
Um, but Bob Chapman, you might check him out. And the company's called Barry Weimeller.
Okay, I will look him up.
Weimeller, yeah. And it's well known for what you're describing in terms of culture and taking care of people and having them feel good at work and take that home with them.
Hmm.
Yeah, that point, Bob
Well,
Chapman.
I will look that up. I'm also working with a guy named Lance Secretan. Have you heard of that name?
Mm-mm.
So Lance used to be the head, I don't know what his title was, of Manpower back in the
Oh, okay.
70s and 80s. And now he is the coach for the head of Microsoft. So he's the coach for the guy who came in after Steve Ballmer,
Oh, okay.
put Microsoft kind of back on track. And he also works with Humana and a couple other big companies. Well, I'm on a team of 10 people to help him forward his work in the world.
Okay.
He has what's called higher ground leadership.
Okay.
And so we're figuring out how to put that into the world, not as structured maybe as you know to be in Lean Six Sigma, but we're trying to figure out this squishy stuff. This,
Yeah, another name that comes to mind, Jodee, is Rich Fernandez. He started a program at Google called SIY, Search Inside Yourself. He's since left Google, but he's doing a lot of enlightenment type work, corporate enlightenment type work. Rich Fernandez.
okay,
Um, I'm connected with both Rich and Bob Chapman on Facebook. So, you can find them, or maybe it's on LinkedIn. I guess it's
okay,
LinkedIn.
okay,
But anyway, yeah, you can easily find them. They're
okay.
great
I would
guests.
love to continue this kind of conversation because if those circles that need to be connected are of higher awareness, and again, this sounds judgmental when I say it like this. I don't mean to sound judgmental, but it's just that when the light starts coming on, you see things differently than you did when it was dark. And
Hmm.
in the dark is where I'm fearful in the dark. I mean, anything could be happening in the dark. I don't know. There could be snakes and monsters under the bed, but as soon as the light comes on, it's less fearful. And
Hmm.
if people are feeling that they can be right in the fear, like you said earlier, people are wanting to be right and they can be right about what's wrong,
Hmm.
and because you can find that anywhere you're looking. And if
Sure.
people are more attached, you were talking about that earlier too, about being attached. If they're more attached to being right, it's just because the light hasn't come on yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And if our job is to connect my light bulb with your light bulb and Bob's and Rich's and whoever, there might be an opportunity to turn the lights on in North Dakota and are you in Florida right now?
No, I'm in Michigan right now.
Okay, so then you're closer to me. We can actually have more light happening quicker. Where are you in Michigan right now?
Grand Rapids.
Okay, yep, I know where you are because you
Check.
were kind of stuck in Florida last time we talked.
I was, yeah. Grand Rapids. So I live half the year here and half the year in Florida, but I'm about to move to Florida more full time.
Okay, cool. Well, there's a lot that I don't know if I can support you in any way. I have a friend, Glodine Champion, who is doing Six Sigma work as a Six Sigma black belt in California with a company called Vox. And she's learning how to do Kaizen events virtually now as well.
Okay.
And she's the only other person I've talked to who does anything virtually in this weird space where we need to be in person typically.
Is she Legacy Six Sigma or is she Lean Six Sigma?
Six Sigma, I believe.
Okay.
I believe. I'll have to check.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
doing value stream mapping and Kaizen events and helping
Okay.
this
Cool.
organization.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to stay in touch and help you out, Jodee, any way I can.
Oh, thank you.
When you hear this, let me know and I'll certainly share it.
Okay. I'll edit out some of this stuff that we're talking about. I'll kind of piece it together here because I don't want to be too out there, but I do want to challenge people's traditional way of thinking because
Okay.
if I'm not speaking my truth, if I'm not speaking because I'm afraid of what people will think, then I'm not doing what I was put here to do, which I've become better at articulating through working with Lance Secretan, and he has a process called destiny, a destiny statement. So it's destiny, character, and calling. And according to him, destiny is why. Why am I here? And the way
Mm-hmm.
he says that is all of us, each of us individually know that there's something that's threatening the world that we're called to do. So
Mm-hmm.
something, it could be world poverty, it could be hunger, it could, whatever it is for each of us. For me, it's the division that I see with a lack of leadership, communication, and connection. I know
Yeah.
that's threatening the world. So that's my destiny.
Yeah.
That's the why. Then the what is the character. No, why? Let me think. Why? B. The B is the character. Why be do? B is who will I be while I'm here? What's my character? Who will I be? Will I be someone who is charismatic? Will I be someone who's upset? Who will I be while I'm here? And then the do is what will I do? How will
Mm-hmm.
I put what I'm up to into action? And
Yeah, I like it. Yeah,
that
it's good.
statement for me is creating conscious communities by having conversations that matter with people who matter to me.
Gives you a nice focus.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Yeah.
my word for 2020 was focus. And I was so all over the place before that. So in 2020, I just decided to take a lane, and that's the lane I'm in.
Yeah. I think my destiny, to use your words, is my destiny, my why is to wake people up. So the more I awaken, the more I want to help other people wake up. I mean, that's what A Course in Miracles teaches, is it's all about awakening and forgiving and loving unconditionally. So, and I can do that through my work. I can do it through my writing, do it through my speaking engagements, podcasts, interviews, things like that. So, and to me, the AM is all about the authenticity that you talk about and, real.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that
Maybe
the idea, real, authentic? Yeah.
authenticity. Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something, I don't know how to do this, but I have a friend who lives in California, and he does webinars or festivals kind of things virtually. And
Okay.
it would be fun to do something where I could bring you in and bring somebody else in and just bring people in that are talking about this. What if Bob Chapman and Rich Fernandez and John Murphy could all be together on one stage virtually talking about whatever it is they talk about,
Yeah.
enlightenment, business, and
Oh, yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah.
I
Maybe it's
have no idea the how of that, but that would be really fun.
yeah, well, you seem to be pretty well connected, so just keep reaching out.
I will. I will. Thank you so much, John. For you're so gracious with your time, and I'm just so grateful to you for writing this book that I happened to find, and then the other books and podcasts and all the stuff you're putting out there is just so crucial to the world. And I thank you for putting it out there, and then also for just being there when I ask you if you'll come and talk to me.
Yeah. Hey, one more lead. Are you familiar with a group called Your Year of Miracles? I think that's what they're called now. It's Deborah Poneman.
Oh, I know
Deborah,
her. Yep.
yeah. So Deborah, she was the Say Yes to Success
Yep.
founder.
I met her. I know her.
Marcy Shimoff. Marcy
Yep.
wrote
I
a
know
couple
her.
best-selling books.
Yep.
Lisa, is it not?
Lisa Nichols.
Yeah, it might be Lisa Nichols and Lisa Gar. Is it Lisa Gar? Um, anyway, it's 3 or 4 women that started this organization, and they might be good guests for you
Yeah, that's
too.
good. I'll do that. I do know Deborah. I met her in person at Steve Farber's Extreme Leadership Experience in San.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Yeah. If you reach out to any of them, just
I'll tell him you
use
told
my
me.
name.
I
Sure.
will. I'm going to use your name. Of course I will. That's all. Thank
All
you,
right.
John. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. God bless you. We will, let's do another one.
I would look forward to it
All
anytime.
right. Bye,
Take care.
Jodee.
Bye-bye.